Hello class, we are going to do lesson 5.4 today on multiplying fractions. So what does it actually mean to multiply a fraction? Really, it's taking the two top numbers and it's multiplying them across. So like 3 times 1 is 3, and if we take 5 times 4 is 20. So our answer to that example right there is 3 over 20. But what does that actually mean? Well, if I were to take a box and divide it up into, so if we had 3 over 5, divided that up into 5 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then shade in 3 of them for the 3/5. Okay, then we were to take that same box, and if we're multiplying it by 1/4, right, we take this same box and we split it up into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. And of those 4 sections, we're going to color in one of them. Now, if we were to color in all of it, it would go all the way down to here. But what does the multiplication part mean? It means the intersection of both of those. So both of the shaded parts would be this one, and this one. So as you can see in this picture right here, the pieces that are shaded in are 3. If we were to count all of those little boxes, there's 20 of them. So that's really what multiplication is about. Now this picture, it might be a little confusing to some, and that's okay. But I think the main part really is talking about you just multiply across. One thing that's neat about multiplying fractions is you do not need to have the same denominator to multiply fractions. Again, you just multiply across. So in this example, we have AC over BD. Okay, let's actually put this into practice because I think that'll make it easier for us. If we look at example 1, if we multiply across, we just take 2 times 7, which is 14, and 3 times 8 is 24. And that's it. You do need to simplify if possible. So I note that both of those are even numbers. That's telling me that they both are divisible by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. That's as simplified as that problem can get. Okay, if I were to take a look at letter B is very, very similar. We can do that one quickly. Multiplying across, we have 5 times 3, or negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. And 12 times 10 is 120. Okay, both of those numbers are actually divisible by 15. And so that would make it negative 1 over 8. If you didn't know that they were both divisible by 15 right away, that's okay. You could have tried 5, you could have tried 3, but eventually, continuously simplifying down, you should get negative 1 over 8. Okay, we're going to skip letter C. I'm actually going to have you try that one on your own once we're done going through example 1 together as a class. Okay, so we'll skip letter C for right now, and let's look at letter D. Okay, for letter D, now notice that the difference here is we have variables. So what we're really doing is we're taking the two variables and we're multiplying those two together. So it's like saying n to the 4th times n squared, which in our last chapter, we learned that when you multiply powers with the same base, it's the same thing as adding the exponents. So it's like saying n to the 4 plus 2, which is n to the 6th power. So that answer right there is n to the 6th, and then we don't want to forget that there's a 9 out in front, so we should put the 9 there. All right, on the bottom we have 12 times 10, which is 120. Okay, and I know 9 and 120, both of those are actually divisible by 3. So let's go ahead and do that. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 120 divided by 3 is 40. That would be as simplified as we can make that problem. Okay, we will do letter E next. So letter E is very similar as well. There is no number in front of the n squared. Another way to think about that is really like if it was a 1. So we could do our 1 times 5, which is 5, and then we have n squared times n to the third, which is really like adding those two exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5, so it'd be n to the 5th power. Multiplying across, 10 times 9 is 90. And both 5 and 90 can be divided by 5. So if we were to do that, we would get 1 n to the 5th over 18. Feel free to use a calculator if you need it. I don't expect you to know 90 divided by 5 in your head. Just go ahead and use a calculator, that's fine. All right, for letter F, I see that we've got this 3 out in front, so I know that there's going to be 3 there. But there is no exponent with that first y. In math, we have this hidden number of 1. The exponent there is 1. So it's like y to the 1 times y to the 5th. If you add those exponents, it becomes y to the 6th power. 4 times 9 is 36. And both of those numbers are divisible by 3. So if we do that, we get 1 y to the 6th over 12. That's our final answer to that problem. Okay, example 2. Looking at example 2. It says evaluate or simplify the expression. In our last chapter, we learned that anything to the 0 power, like even a variable to the 0 power, is the number 1. So it really does not matter what is inside this parenthesis. What matters is that it's to the 0 power. So that means that this whole answer is 1. So it looks a lot harder than it really is. In letter B, we can distribute this exponent through. So it's really like saying a squared and then over 9 squared. And 9 squared is like 9 times 9. That's 81. So that is our final answer there. Okay, on the back side, to multiply mixed numbers, you must first write the mixed number as an improper fraction. This is what we were doing in our last lesson. So I'm going to do letters A and B for you, and I will have you try letters C and D on your own, and you can check those with the teacher's notes. Okay, taking a look at letter A, 10 right now is not written as a fraction. If I wanted to write 10 as a fraction, that's the same thing as saying 10 divided by 1, because 10 divided by 1 is still the number 10. So now we are going to use the same method that we did last lesson. We're going to take 2 times 11 and then plus 3. 2 times 11 is 22. Plus 3 is 25. Now I don't do anything with that negative until just right now. I put it right in front of the 25. And then that 11 stays the same. So 10 times negative 25 is negative 250. And 1 times 11 is 11. Okay, and again, this is the same thing we did in the last lesson. So how do I write this now as a mixed number? Well, just off to the side, you can write down what is 250 divided by 11. When I do that on my calculator, I'm going to get 22 point something. So that tells me that my final answer should be negative 22 and some number over 11. Now to figure out what that number is, we can take 22 times 11. 22 times 11, and when I do that, I get the number 242. So how many is it from 242 to 250? Well, there's a difference there of 8. 242 plus 8 is this number 250. So that's where we get our answer. Okay, let's take a look at letter B. Same style. So we're not going to use this negative yet. We're just going to take 2 times 4 plus 3. That's the number 11. Now you can put the negative out in front. Keep the 4 the same. 3 times 5 plus 1, 16 over 5. Using a calculator, negative 11 times 16 is negative 176, and 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, 176 divided by 20, if I were to use my calculator, I'm going to get 8 point something something. So that tells me that my answer should be negative 8. And I know it's going to be some number over 20, but I'm not sure what, right? Well, I just take this 8 times 20 to figure that out. 8 times 20 is 160. So what's the difference between 176 and 160? That's a difference of 16. So that's where it's 16 over 20. Now I do notice that 16 and 20 are both even, so I know they're for sure divisible by 2, but I also know that they're divisible by 4, so I'm just going to go right to dividing them by 4. When I do that, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 20 divided by 4 is 5. So that would be my simplified answer for letter B. Okay, looking at example 4, it says find the area of the triangle. So the area formula for triangle is 1/2 times base times height. The base of a triangle is this bottom right there. That's going to be my B, my base. And the height of the triangle, that's right here. It's actually the perpendicular distance to the base. Okay, so if I were to do this, I have 1/2 times base, which we said is 4 3/10, times my height, which is 3 1/3. Similar to the last example, we want to write all of these as improper fractions. So maybe I'll actually switch my color here. So we're going to have 1/2 times, let's see, 4 times 10 plus 3 is 43 over 10, and 3 times 3 plus 1 is 10. Okay, when I multiply across, so I'm taking 1 times 43 times 10. That's going to give me the number 430. And then I take all of these numbers and I multiply them. 2 times 10 times 3, that is the number 60. Okay, similar to the last ones, 430 divided by 60 is going to be 7 point something something. So that's 7, and how many is left over of the 60? Well, 60 times 7 is 420. So how do you get from 420 to 430? That's a difference of 10. So it's 7 and 10 over 60. Both 10 and 60 end in a 0. That's telling me that they're divisible by the number 10. Okay, so this would be the same thing as saying 7 and 1 over 6. Now this is a word problem, so I need my unit. My unit here is centimeters, and area means I need my unit to be squared, so it's going to be centimeters squared for my answer. Okay, one more problem. Example 5 says the shower head in your home uses 2.5 gallons of water per minute. If you take a 7-minute shower, how many gallons of water are you going to use? So what this means is we're going to use 2.5 gallons of water every single minute. So if we are using water for 7 minutes, that's saying we're going to take 2.5 gallons times 7. Okay, so similar to before, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2. And then if I wanted to write 7 as a fraction, I'm going to write that as 7 over 1. 5 times 7 is 35, and 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, 35 divided by 2, that is 17.5. So I know it's 17 and 1/2. 0.5 is the same thing as 1/2. All right, what is my unit here? I'm going to go back to the question and I'm going to read how many gallons of water do you use? So this is 17.5 gallons of water. Okay, that is our lesson 5.4 on multiplying fractions. Thank you and see you next time.